Hi everyone and welcome to this special episode, or episodes maybe might be more precise, of Beckman's Breakdown, the show where usually I take a look at the BWF World Tour events at Super 750 and 1000, including the majors and the team events. Now, if any of you have watched me for any sort of period of time, or at least seen me do some of the majors, usually I do a prediction / preview video before they go down. And in about 2 weeks' time, we will be having the 2026 World Badminton Championships kicking off in Delhi, India. And so, of course, the draws are out. They came out a few days ago as of recording. I've taken the time over the last couple of days to look at the draws, look at the players, and now I'm here sat before you going to give my opinion on them. Not just the opinion on the players, but maybe some predictions, etc. as well. Now, usually, and my last breakdown video was 3 hours long. Don't worry, this one won't be that long. I'm going to try something. I'm going to break it down into 5 separate mini episodes, each looking at the 5 different disciplines: the mixed doubles, the women's doubles, men's doubles, women's singles, and men's singles. This is the first episode of that, and each one's going to be dropping each day. So if you're watching this on Monday, then you are watching it the day it's come out. So don't worry, tomorrow will be another video, Wednesday will be another, and so on and so on. So by Friday, the end of Friday, you'll have every single piece of my opinion and prediction out there. And you can go from there. The first episode, so today, is going to be looking at the mixed doubles. So let me just quickly, I've got the draws here, and I've probably got them on screen already. I'm using them from Badminton Indonesia. A lot of different people on social media will put up, so the draw gets released on the BWF website, etc., on different avenues, and then different Instagram accounts or social media accounts will make their own graphics. And I feel the one from Badminton Indonesia is really nice, striking, it's big, it's bold, it's easy to see, whereas on the BWF website, it's a little bit harder to follow. So, and this is a nice little graphic that I can just have on the screen to the right of me, sorry, most likely as you are watching this video. So I've got the mixed doubles draw up, and I'm going to go through each quarter, and as you can see on the graphic, each quarter is kind of broken up into top half and a bottom half. So if I say that top half, don't worry, I'll make it very clear as I go along. I will be doing predictions, and I do this for all prediction videos, is basically on who I think is going to make the the final, so to the medal rounds. I don't tend to look much further than that. Usually I'll end up repeating myself. You can kind of get a good gauge of the pairs or the players that I think I'll do well. But I think that's a good start. Otherwise, you just end up going too far, and it's already difficult enough, to be honest with you, to try and predict anything. It's already difficult enough to try and predict up into the semi-finals in some of these events, if not all of them. And actually, as I found doing this video, I probably looked at the players and pairs more closely than I've ever done before for one of these videos. And the more I did that, the harder it became. You just start having questions. You think you got a good idea. You look at the draw and you're like, ah, yeah, so and so should get through that. And then you look at some head-to-heads, and then you look at some recent results. Then you find an injury article, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, well, that changes that. And then just throw into the fact that sport is just so unpredictable. Have I got enough excuses out the way for the fact that if the world's finished and I've got no predictions right, that I'm okay? Great, I've done my job. But anyway, I need to crack on. So looking at the top quarter of this mixed doubles. Actually, before I even get into the mixed doubles, sorry, I think it has been rocked a little bit, the mixed doubles, by some recent developments within the PBSI, Indonesian badminton. There has been some allegations of match fixing. Nothing has been confirmed yet. There is an investigation going on, but that is why we haven't got Jafar Hidiatullah and Pasaribu of Indonesia playing, a pair that I really like. That if any of you follow this channel or follow me on social media, know how much I like that pair. It seems that either one or both have been wrapped up in this kind of match fixing allegation. So Indonesia still have 2 pairs, I believe, in the draw. No, 3 actually. Let me quickly double check that. No, they got 2. Both are in the top half. One of them is slightly unknown. Another one that I will be talking about a little later that actually I think could be quite have got themselves positioned in a pretty nice section of the draw. But anyway, back to the top half, or the top quarter, sorry, because we are in the top half. It's an interesting top quarter in the mixed doubles, actually, especially the second half of it, but I need to get onto the top. But first things first, we must obviously look at the top seeds from China, Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping. Will 2026 finally be the year they deliver at the World Championships? They've played 2 World Championships together before. Wang Dongping has been in, I think, a couple of World Championship finals with Wang Yilu, her former partner, a partner that she won the Olympics with. But with Feng Yanze, they have not made it to the medal rounds. In fact, the last 2 editions, they have fallen both times to Matthias Christiansen and Alexandra Boe, who are in their half, but because they're third seeds, they won't face them before the medal rounds. They might be a little happy about that, but there's some other pairs in their section that I think could be potential speed bumps for them. Now, when you combine the fact that they never reached the medal rounds in the World Championships with their quarterfinal loss at the Olympics, then it does seem that true major championships, so Asian Games, I think I can rightly say they didn't make the medal rounds there either. They might have lost in the... I can't remember exactly the result off my head. I didn't look at that one. But obviously, as I said, the World Championships, no medals. Olympics, they didn't medal in Paris. But then again, you don't have to go back too far to say that they were kind of not so good at the Super 1000s or at those kind of major tournaments. But they've since this year, they've won one. They won the Super 1000 in Malaysia, and they reached the final of the recent China Open. So they're going to come in feeling pretty good for this tournament. They won the Japan Open, and they, like I said, they reached the final of the China Super 1000. Although in China, they did lose to a pair they had never lost to before, their compatriots, Guo Jinhua and Chen Fangwei. So that might hurt them a little more than usual, that loss, and maybe might knock them ever so slightly. Now, looking at their little top section, I think they've got the first big test will come in the form of the number 16 seeds from Japan, Yuta Watanabe and Maya Taguchi. This is a relatively new pair. They've been together since the Paris Olympics. Yuta Watanabe obviously has been a multiple-time world medalist with Arisa Igarashi, so he knows what it takes. But this pair are in inspired form lately. They got to the semi-finals of the Asia Championships earlier in the year. They got to the quarter-final at the China Open Super 1000, only just losing 21-19 in the third to Dichapon and Super Sara. They won the recent Chinese Taipei Open, beating the All England champions and looking incredibly strong. I don't think they actually dropped a game in that tournament. And actually, the Korean Masters, as I'm recording this, are still on with the finals to be played tomorrow. And they're in the final of that too. So some might say, are they overplaying in the preparation for the World Championships? Maybe. But maybe it would help them hit the ground running. If they can, especially if they can win tomorrow at the Korean Masters, then that's going to give them a huge boost. 2 tournaments in 2 weeks. They then get a week off. They get to chill a little bit, get a bit of practice in. Then they head off to India, and they're going to be hitting that tournament. You haven't lost in like 2 tournaments, and even the tournament before that, you only just lost to one of the best pairs in the world. I don't think you can think of much better of a confidence boost for them. And if you add that to the fact that, yes, potentially they still got to get through either the winner of Marvin Seidel and Tuk Fong Yun and Chan Yin Chak and Yao, who are both good pairs and potentially could upset the Japanese. But if they're say to come through that and were to go against Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping, now against that pair, I don't think they've actually played them yet, but Yuta Watanabe played that pair with Arisa and actually has a 4-2 negative head-to-head. And if you look at Wang Dongping with her former partner, Yuta didn't have too much success against them, but you have to also look at the fact that it's the World Championships, a tournament where Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping have fallen, and it'll be in the third round, where they've actually fallen a couple of times before. So maybe that might give Yuta Watanabe a bit like a shark sniffing blood in the water, go, actually, this is the time to play them. So it's very, very interesting top section of that draw. I guess the last thing I'll say when it comes to the Japanese pair is, Maya Taguchi has made huge inroads. She's looking far more confident Far more comfortable on court. She's made some great technical and tactical improvements. And I said this in my last breakdown. I went into this pair quite a lot, but I think that's really helping you to free him up and play much more like we know that he can play. She's looked very confident in those tournaments, but the Worlds, it's going to be her. Actually, did they play last year? I can't remember, but it's either a debut or a second time. It's a major tournament. There's going to be a whole new level of pressure, and so we'll start to see maybe that will knock her a bit. In China, one area that definitely was a little shaky that I haven't seen in the last 2 weeks was her serve. So maybe we will start to see some of that show its head again in the World Championships because of her lack of experience there. It's hard to really see how that ball's going to drop when it comes to them, but it's a potentially very exciting match, and with the fact that the Japanese will have, in a way, nothing to lose, I think it makes it even more so. Moving on to the bottom part, and this one is very open as I see it. There are 4 pairs. 4 pairs. 1, 2, 3, 5 pairs actually. I mean, all pairs in the World Championships, they deserve to be there, but in the bottom bit, really, only one of the pairs, Andre Kral and Teresa Zvabikova, not to kind of put them down, but all other pairs in that bottom half, I think, have a good chance or a chance of getting through to the quarterfinals. There's a big chance for all the pairs there. You got Chen Xing and Zhang Qi from China. They're good. They reached a final in the Indonesia Open and have won 2 of the titles, but struggled to pick up wins in the last 2 events. You've got Callum Hemming and Estelle Van Leeuwen. European silver medalist, semi-final of the recent US Open, and in China had a very good 3-game match with Yuta Watanabe and Maya Taguchi. Then you've got Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jemmy Lai. They're, for me, the most experienced pair in that bottom half of the draw, and probably for me the favourites to come through that section. They played really well, or they played well in India early this year, pushing Feng and Wang to 18 in the final game. You've got Kim Jae-hyun and Jang Ha-young, a new pair from Korea that won the Asia Championships. And I mentioned the Korea Masters. They're the pair that Maya Taguchi and Yuta Watanabe will face. So if they can win, they're going to come in with a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a kind of that extra lift. Maybe that might help them come through. And then to round it out, you've got Chen Ziyi and Francesca Corbett of the USA. No outstanding results for them, but the fact that there's been a number of pairs in the mixed doubles, the women's doubles, and even the men's doubles, which actually includes both these players, getting great results for USA Badminton. You simply can't overlook them and can't take them lightly. Now, I did go and look at the head-to-heads between kind of all of these pairs, and if I quickly scan them, it does seem, I think it kind of backs up what I said about Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jemmy Lai being somewhat the favourites, I guess. There's a number of them they haven't actually faced each other. So the Chinese pair hasn't faced either the Koreans or the Americans. The Koreans also haven't faced the English pair or the Americans. For Go Sun Wat and Chandra Lai, they played the Koreans once and did lose. That was at Singapore. But they have a 2-0 head-to-head against the Americans. And whilst they're 3-2 down against the Chinese, they've won the last 2, which I think is always quite a big boost. Even if you are down in the head-to-head, if you've won the last 2 encounters especially, that can give you a bit of a boost. It's going to be quite interesting for me to see who comes out of that bottom bit of the top quarter of the mixed doubles draw. But prediction, and as I'm going to go through this, I'm going to do each quarter-final section and then give my prediction. I'll probably remind you all of my predictions at the end. Now, I really do want to say Yuta Watanabe and Maya Taguchi because I'm really enjoying how they are playing recently. And I think if they can win, like I said, in Korea as well, that'll be a huge confidence boost. I've already mentioned this. Feng and Wang will be obviously incredibly difficult, but given it's the Worlds, that does create a chance in my eyes. Everyone in the bottom half is capable of coming through, but none of them are standing truly out to me. I think I'm going to just go with the paper books here and go with Feng and Wang. I think they're going to make the semi-final, finally get that medal that they've been eyeing for. But, and it's a but, I wouldn't be surprised if Yuta Watanabe and Maya Taguchi pull something out of the bag. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Right, second quarter of the mixed doubles. So the bottom quarter of the top half. Let's just call it the second quarter. I'd say this quarter is similar to the top one, as in the top section of it is really between two clear pairs. This time, Matthias Christiansen and Alexandra Boe, and Yang Po Xuan and Huling Fang of Chinese Taipei, and a bottom half with a few pairs who could make it through. In the top half, the favourites are the third seeds from Denmark. Prior to Japan and China, they were on a pretty remarkable run of tournaments, which culminated in them winning the Singapore Super 750 and the Indonesia Open Super 1000 back-to-back. It was an absolutely incredible performance by them. They didn't have the best time in Japan and China, reaching the quarterfinals of both. That's not a shocking result, but after what they had done a month before, I think people did expect, at least in one of those events, for them to do a little better. I watched not a massive amount of their badminton in those two tournaments, but when I did, they looked a little flat, especially Matthias. I didn't see much of their play. They just seemed to lack the energy that I saw the month before. The possible, and this is possible for them, it's always really hard to tell, of whether they trained through Japan and China, or at least weren't trying to kind of peak for it. There might have been a little bit of like a further eye on the World Championships. I wouldn't be surprised after what they did in the Asian leg before, that they were like, right, okay, let's really focus our attention on the World Championships. Also, although it's a month, it's quite hard and they had a real peak and they were out on the tour for 4 or 5 weeks. You would have probably needed they probably took at least a week or two off after that. So imagine their preparations for Japan and China were a little bit limited. So it feeds more into theory that I think Japan and China, they obviously obligated to play, and they would have wanted to play, but it probably wasn't something that was high on their priority. Now, what adds to them being quite firm favourites, or good, is that they've performed well at the last couple of World Championships. I mentioned earlier that they defeated Feng and Zheng Wanlongping both times, but both times they were then unable to capitalise and make it to the medal round. So can they do it this time and become the first medalists from Denmark since Joachim Fischer Nielsen and Christina Pedersen back in 2014? Like I said, the other pair in their section that's going to try to stop them get to the quarterfinals is most likely going to be Yang Po Xuan and Hu Ling Fang. They also, like the Danes, reached the quarterfinals in Japan and China, as well as the final in their home event, the Chinese Taipei Open, where they lost to Yuta Watanabe and Maya Taguchi. They also had a good win over Dichapon and Tsubasara in Japan. Now, the head-to-head between these two pairs is 5-2. To the Danish pair, with the Danes winning their last meeting in Singapore, but the Taipei pair did beat them, the Danish pair, at the All England, which is another huge tournament earlier in the year. So it's going to be quite interesting. That'll be quite the battle for me between those two pairs. I think we know what we're going to get with the Danes, and I think the Chinese Taipei pair, they're going to come in really hot. Yang Po Xuan is a really nice player, but I really like Hu Ling Fang. She covers the court really well. They both also play the doubles, which possibly could, if they're doing well in both of that. Actually, I'm pretty sure Hu Ling Fang, maybe I didn't see them as doubles draw, but Yang Po Xuan definitely is, because I can remember him from my notes. But maybe how well they do in one could affect the other. As for the bottom half, like I said, with the top quarter, there are a number of pairs in that little bottom section. You got right at the top, you got the 7 seed Tang Chunman, Saying Sweat. I absolutely loved how they played in Japan, where they reached the final, and I felt they actually played well in China despite losing in the first round. They just weren't quite able to sustain that level, and they also played against Shimigami and Hobara, and it was an epic game. It was absolutely fantastic stuff. So yeah, no, they played really well. Not only that, but Saying Sweat looked probably in the best physical shape I have ever seen. I think she's playing at a speed that she can now keep up with Tang Chunman. I said this in my last breakdown. Tang Chunman, after they kind of broke up, because everyone thought Saying Sweat had retired, I felt Tang Chunman increased his physicality, his speed on court. He was looking far faster. And then I think when they came back, Saying Sweat was a little bit, they still had some great early success, but she couldn't quite keep up. But I feel like what I saw in Japan and also in China, that she's finally able to keep up with Tang. If we add to the fact that this pair are highly experienced, They've been in an Asian Games final and are two-time world bronze medalists. And they also got a 4th place at the Tokyo Olympics. They're going to be a pair that can be very difficult to beat. And if they do come through their section against the Taipei pair, I think they're going to hope that it's Yang and Huling Fang that come through, because they're 5-0 up against that pair, as opposed to 1-5 down against the Danish pairs. They also have a good head-to-head against the other good pairs in that bottom section, apart from the All England champions Ye Hongwei and Nicole Gonzalez Chan. But as we'll probably find, a lot of like the bottom half of the other one, a lot of the head-to-heads, they're quite close. Most of them are like they've only played once, maybe twice, and it's very difficult to call it on that. The next pairs we go down for me is the Thai pair of Rutanapak Opthong and Janicha Sujai Prat. A very solid pair, very capable, and going to be very, very dangerous and difficult to beat. Obviously, we've got the All England champions, the number 9 seeds, Ye Hongwei and Nicole Gonzalez Chan. The All England was kind of a freak result for them, but you still can't overlook them at all. They have shown that they have the highest level there. That's what they showed at the All England. And so whenever you've seen a pair bring out that, they're always capable of doing it again. And then for me, you have Amri Sainawi and Nita Violina Marwa of Indonesia. They'll be flying the flag for Indonesia. They're not the only pair. There are other Indonesian pairs also in this quarter-final, quarter section of the draw. But this is the stronger pair, the more one that people know. They reached the quarterfinals of the All England, and I watched them play. They had a very good game against Guo Junhua and Cheng Fang Wei. Had their chances. They've reached 2 other semi-finals too. They're not as decorated as the other pairs I've already mentioned, but they are a strong pair. The only thing for them is they might possibly feel the weight of leading the Indonesian mixed doubles, which, like I said at the top of this video, of this episode, has been rocked recently. So, prediction. My prediction in my notes was Tang Chunman and Se Sweat, because I really liked how they played in Japan, and I thought they carried that into China, just weren't able to physically sustain it. I really loved how Se Sweat looked physically very fit. I think they're going to have to hope, if it is going to be them, I do think, just based on head-to-heads, they're going to probably have to hope that the Danish pair are knocked out before then. But the more I think about it, it's really, really difficult. The last time the Hong Kong pair played, or their one win over the Danes, was at a World Championships. Maybe experience the fact that the Danes haven't got to the medal rounds, possibly, but then the Danes have also got over numerous hurdles, having been in quite a lot of finals this year and won major tournaments, including a Super 1000. It's a really hard section for me. And like I said, I had the pair from Hong Kong. Maybe I was doing that just so I wouldn't every section go like this is the top seeds. But the more I think about it, I think the Danish style, if it is the Danes that are facing the Hong Kong pair, their style, where they come very much on the front foot and really press forward and take as much time away, whereas the pair from Hong Kong like to play with a little bit more expansion. They can obviously play fast and they have multiple games in their arsenal, but I think the Danish style, they might be able to get on top and find gaps. Really, really difficult. I think this is going to sound silly. It's going to come down to obviously who plays the best. But if the Danish pair play like they did in Singapore and Indonesia in that section, which I think they're going to come in much better shape than they did in Japan and China, whereas I think we saw the top level of the Hong Kong pair there. And like I've already said, sometimes it's quite hard to then sustain or to keep going. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go with the Danes of Matthias Christiansen and Alexandra Boe for that section. But it's so difficult. Like I said to you at the top of this video, the more you think about these things, the more you look into it, the harder it becomes. But anyway, I'm going to move on. I think what I'll say is the Danes, I'm going to be my pick. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Hong Kong pair make it through, if Tang and Se. To me, they're my 2 favourites for that section. Now, the third quarter, so the top of the bottom half, I think many will look at this section and will feel it will be between the 4 seeds. So you have the 4 seeds are the 14th seed Presley Smith and Jenny Guy. They're the Pan Am champs, quarterfinal Malaysia, semi-final Australia, went through with Feng and Wang, have beaten Yang Po Xuan and Huling Fang, and reached recent back-to-back semi-finals in the US Open and the Canada Open. Below them, you have the 5th seeds, Tondra Quell and Delphine Delroux. They're all England finalists. They've won an Indonesia Open last year. They reached the semi-final of the Indian Open this year. And they also reached the semi-final of the last Super 1000 in China. Pretty good consistency at Super 1000s. And they're former European Championships champions as well. In the bottom section, you've got Yuichi Shimagami and Sayaka Habara of Japan. They were finalists at the Singapore Open. And like I said, they beat a well-playing Tanjuman Saying Sweat, who got to the final of Japan recently in China. And then rounding out, you had the 4th seeds, Deechapon, Pruvanukro, and Supasara Pesa Sampran. They're finalists, the Asia Championships. They also won in India early this year, the same venue where the World Championships will be played. And yeah, I think last year, when it comes to that Thai pair, last year they lost to a bogey pair of Midorikawa and Saito. Possible pressure, they were definitely one of the favourites. I think I even picked them to make the medal rounds last year. And watching them recently, I haven't been blown away by them. And let's be honest, there's another, with Shimagami and Hobara, it's another Japanese pair this year who are capable of beating them, have done recently, and also will likely feel like underdogs, which does relieve some of the pressure. For the top half, I think the French will come through their section. They've never faced the Americans before, so you do never know. But Jacquel and Delroux, far more experienced. They got a bronze last year. The Americans have improved so much in 1 year, but I'm going to still favour the French. So for me, when it comes to predictions, again, I've written in my notes here at the top, man, this shit really isn't easy. There's so many factors, and the fact there isn't one pair truly standing out. I've gone for Deechapon and Supasara again. I backed them last year and they fell. They might fall again. But whilst this is a tricky decision, I think they come in pretty good confidence. They have a little bit more world experience from last year. Deechapon has also gone the distance. He is a former world champion himself. They're positive head-to-heads against all the pairs in their section of the draw. I do think they'll face the French in the quarters, which will be quite the showdown. But I think the win in India, and that being a comfortable win against the French pair, may I add, I know it's different timing and obviously different preparations, but I think that will help. So I think all the factors are pointing towards Deechapon and Supasara. Bottom quarter, so the final bit, the final section of the mixed doubles draw. I think, I'm not saying it is 100% definite. Definitely not. Nothing ever is. But this section, for me, both top and bottom, is basically a battle between the top two, the two Chinese pairs. Capillo and Crasto, the number 15 seeds, are fighters, and I think they can make life difficult for Guo Junhua and Fang Wei, the number 6 seeds. And I think if the Chinese don't come out like they did in China, where they played brilliantly and came out with crazy intensity, then they could be in trouble. But the Indians have never beaten the Chinese pair before, or even taken a game off them. There's the home crowd factor. That might give them a lift, but I think if the Chinese come out super serious, which I think they will, and play like they did in China, or with at least with the same intensity and intent, then I think the Chinese pair are going to come through. And I can't really see any other pair in their little section before the quarters that are going to trouble them. In the bottom bit, it's a little bit more interesting for me. You have obviously Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Yaxin, who got to the final last year, the number 2 seeds. The seeds in their section, and really a pair that are seeded to face them is Sapsiri Terattanachai, former world champion with Deechapon, and you've got Pakapon Teratsukun. They've never lost, the Chinese pair have never lost to that Thai pair, but in Japan and China, Zhang and Wei looked incredibly shaky. And that, I think, is because they haven't played together all too much since the All England. They played the Macau Open, which was Super 300. They won that, but it was, looking at the pairs, it wasn't a particularly tough tournament for them. it's for a big reason that actually the Chinese coaches split them up, and it seems that has knocked them a bit. They've been difficult for them to find their form. They did get a few matches under the belt. I think they reached the quarterfinals in China, which possibly might have given them enough court time to kind of refine something. And they are obviously a world-class pair, but that definitely does make things a little shaky for the Chinese pair. Now, I did just say that it's between those two seeds, but, there's a huge chance I see for the Scottish pair of Alexander Dunn and Julie McPherson, who are right at the top of that bottom section, because they've played the Thai pair, or they're seeded to play them. They should come through against the New Zealand pair of Edward Lau and Shauna Lee, and that would put them in a match against the Thais, and they've played them once and beaten them. And the fact that the Scots would have had a match on the courts, so used to the conditions, gives them an even greater advantage. So I think generally a big chance for the Scottish pair. And whilst the Chinese then should, on paper and all other metrics, beat them, if they can come through, Alex and Julia have had some great results and some great performances against some top pairs. I wouldn't completely overlook them. As for predictions for this bottom section, I've gone for Guo Jinhua and Cheng Fengwei. If they play like I did in China, or even slightly near that, where they won, they should come through this section. Yes, that was a home event with an extra boost from the crowd, but I was incredibly impressed. Plus, they have won other big titles like the All England and can do well. They also reached semi-finals last year, and whilst they did lose to Zhang Zongbang and Wei Yaoxin, like I said, last year in comparison, Zhang and Wei were in much better form a year ago. They won the Japan Open and got the silver in China, even the silver in the Malaysian Masters too. This year, it was just 2 quarterfinals for Zhang and Wei. So, and the fact they just haven't played together as much in the build-up, I think that gives advantage to the number 6 seeds, Guo Jinhua and Cheng Fengwei. So they have it for the mixed doubles, guys. The first of 5 videos that I'll be doing, 5 predictions and previews on the World Championships. To quickly summarize my predictions for the top quarter, I went for Feng Yunze and Wang Dongping, but I did say that don't overlook Watanabe and Taguchi. They can certainly spring a surprise. In the next quarter, I did go against my original pick in my notes. My original pick was Tang Chunman and Sang Sweat. I changed my mind on the fly and have gone for Christiansen and Bowe. I told you the more you think about these things, the harder it becomes. But I've gone for the Danes. In the next section, I've gone for Deechapon and Supasara. So I have actually gone for the highest ranked seeds so far. But I mixed it up in the final one because I went for the 6 seeds, not the number 2 seeds. Guo Jinhua and Cheng Fengwei. So let me know your thoughts on the draws. Anything you want at all. You can obviously give me your thoughts on what I've said. Also, please do let me know your own predictions. That would be pretty cool. And then at the end of the World Championships, when they're all concluded, we can look back at them and have a good old laugh. I'll definitely be looking at my predictions and your predictions in my Beckman's breakdown following it. But until tomorrow, everyone, unless you're seeing this video late, but tomorrow will be episode 2 of this little mini-series where I'll be looking at the women's doubles. So until then, take care, everyone.